up until the very last lap, we did not know who was gonna win, and my son is a huge fan of Alexander Rossi, and he was leading at one point. It looked like he was gonna win. He wound up 4th, actually. He was 2nd, 3rd, but his teammate anyway, Joseph Newgarden won 2nd year in a row, which is a big accomplishment. Win 2 consecutive Indy 500s is a big deal. But we didn't know until the very last lap, and we watched all this crazy passing. It was super exciting. The stands and the energy is insane because you talk about
Right.
350,000 people. It's the largest single-day sporting event in the world.
As you can hear, Natascha and her family had an amazing time at the Indianapolis 500, and you'll hear us talking all about that, as well as how to use a family meeting in order to keep everyone on the same page on the next episode of the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, starting now. For those of you just joining us for the first time, maybe, I'm Alegre.
I'm Natascha.
And together we are Beyond Your Wildest Dreams.
And we are committed to helping you prioritize yourself, save time, and achieve your goals. Because that is the journey that we're on, and we're maybe just a couple of steps ahead of you, but we want to share with you all of our advice, our wisdom, and our tried and true tips and techniques that help you get there.
Yeah, we know what it's like to be busy moms and trying to do anything for ourselves. It's really hard. It's easy to push our needs and our goals further and further back. But what we experienced doing that was that we ended up not so happy and kind of burnt out.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine this morning who I haven't spoken to in a while, and she has a kid our age, starting high school next year, and she's like, "We've only got 4 years left," and she has 3 other young ones, right? So, but she was just talking about, exactly that, prioritizing what's important as opposed to just, dealing with what's urgent and what shows up, and, just how tricky that can be and how easy it is to just fall into the trap of doing whatever pops up that's urgent over and over and over again. Now, urgent things are urgent sometimes, but we don't want those to just overtake what's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what we have for you is we get together once a week. We do this live chat on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Also, if you love podcasts, which we do put out the audio only version of this as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. You can get that wherever you listen in about 24 hours from when you see this live. We've also got this beautiful bouquet of books.
It's such
And
I feel like we should get some baby's breath to put in between them and maybe some like fronds.
Yes.
Because it is a bouquet.
It needs a ribbon right here. Imagine a ribbon and some stems, and you get the idea.
Yes.
And these are all workbooks because Natascha and I have been educators for a long time, and we know that the way you learn best is when you do, not just take it in through a lecture or a book or whatever, but actually do. So they're short, they're workbooks, and pretty much all of these workbooks have an accompanying workshop that you can get at our website because we know some of you learn better by watching rather tan reading. And so you can find all that information on our website below, bywdreams.com.
Yeah, and even if you are an auditory learner or a visual learner or good at writing things down, like I find for me, I like to listen to stuff. I like to do it cross-pollinate and do it from all different angles if possible.
And actually that makes a lot of sense because interestingly enough, we think of our brain as like this one thing, but there's an area that processes reading. There's an area that processes video. There's an area that processes auditory. So when you take things in through different ways, it's more of a whole brain experience. Like when I'm editing our books that we write, I actually will have the Word document read it to me as I'm reading it with my eyes. And I catch more errors that way because I have 2 parts of my brain processing it. So,
smart.
Yeah, so as usual, we chit chat and then we have a topic. Our topic this week is how to run a family meeting because it's one of the ways that Natascha and I really recommend helping to make sure you're on the same page because communication is so key when you're living with somebody.
100%. Yep, totally. And having just gotten back from an 8-day trip, and it's so weird because we got back yesterday, today's Thursday, right? It feels like a Monday today. And so I was just, I had to remind myself, remember myself. I had to remind myself, I'm like, "It's Thursday, girl. It's Thursday." While we were traveling, I turned off all of our normal alarms,
Right.
just because, we're on vacation. I don't need to remind
Yeah.
feed the dog and da da da. So when we got back home and this morning, I kind of was like in a little bit of a fog. It was like about 20 minutes before I had to actually get up, and I was like, "Oh," I was drifting off to sleep, and I was like, "Oh well, the 7 a.m. alarm is going to wake us up." I had not the alarm on, and it was quarter after 7 when I was like, "Ah," and and we had to rush out of the house and all that kind of stuff. But so it does kind of and the first thing I'm gonna do, um, when our this session is over, is sit down and time block the rest of this day and through the weekend, because there's just so much that goes. We're in our last 10 days of school, right?
Mhm.
It's actually less than that. That's including weekends. But that, we're in the last little stretch of school, and there's a lot that needs to happen in these next 10 days. And so if I don't get on top of it and time block that, it is going to be before I know it, their culmination ceremonies will be here, and summer will have begun.
Right.
And those last little things that I really need to get in place before that happens, will not, if I just kind of like let it, like, oh, I've got to get to it. I better time block that. And that is,
Definitely.
I am kind of, you know what? I was like, I was going to say I was kicking myself for not to have time blocked things on the plane yesterday. But I sat back and watched a movie that I wanted to see for forever. Well, Shims for forever.
Mm.
A movie, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit here and watch this movie and not. But I really, really should have taken about 20 minutes to time block this weekend, because I definitely feel like I'm on my back foot. And maybe I would have been like, oh, you should turn all the alarms back on.
Right, you need, like, an alarm to remind you to turn the
Turn
alarms
back on
on.
the alarms. 100%. Oh my gosh, that's going on my next vacation checklist. You know, make sure I set an alarm to set up the alarms for when we come back. Yeah.
Yeah, an alarm for the alarms, and Natasha and I do this all the time where we kind of dissect, like, what worked and didn't work logistically, and then think of, solutions, like setting an alarm to turn on your alarms. You might
Dude,
need to do it.
seriously, for real, because you just we come back in a haze, just got, like, laundry to do, the house is, like,
Oh my god,
cluttered, gotta
laundry.
pick up the dog, we're all tired, it's just like, "Alright, let's go get to bed," and I just was ready for those alarms to take care of themselves, but they did not.
So Natasha just got back from a super exciting trip. She went to
So
see
fun.
the Indianapolis 500.
The 100
So, tell
running
us.
Indianapolis 500, it was wild. My husband is a motorsports fan, and so this is all he
Fan?
fanatic,
Well, I mean, that's where fan comes from,
right,
but I feel like
exactly.
fan is like a lower level. He is a higher level.
He's higher level. He pretty much loves all things motorsports.
Oh, wait, I have to show you my new mug.
What? Where did you
And
get
wait,
that?
wait, watch this.
What does it say? Hold my beer? No, what does it
Too glam to give a damn.
have? Please
Isn't
put
that
your
so
hand through it though. Like, can you put your hand through it so I can girl, what?
well, and it kinda matches, right?
Yes, it totally matches. That is freaking amazing. I love that so much. Where did you get that? That is so great.
From my Buy
I
Nothing
know,
group.
of course. I don't even ask anymore. She is the greatest by nothing, y'all. Seriously, I'm gonna just pretend I live in her neighborhood because the greatest stuff ever.
Well, I do run the Buy Nothing group though
You
too,
do.
so
I know, but
it's
even
not
so, like, just the stuff that goes up though is really amazing. Um,
but I feel like that's a testament to how much people like each other, that they're willing to part with cool things.
right.
Like I gave away sorry, digress to Buy Nothing because I love Buy Nothing.
Amen.
I gave away a Tiffany bowl on my Buy Nothing that had been a wedding gift, but it had never really been my style, but I'm kind of sentiment I no, I am sentimental. I'm sentimental, it was a wedding gift, so I kept it for 20 years.
Mhm.
And then the other day, I went to dust it and I was like, "You know what? I'd be really happy for someone in my Buy Nothing group to have this."
Totally, right?
And I put it up and I said, "Hey, tell me your best wedding story. It doesn't have to be yours, it could be one you attended, whatever." And someone said, "We eloped. I never got to have a wedding. I never had a registry or anything like that. Like, I would cherish your Tiffany bowl." And I was like, "Absolutely. I would love for you to have my Tiffany bowl." So, I do think that
Totally, yeah,
the
yeah,
strength of the community is indicative of the kind of gifts people are willing to give
Totally.
away on the Buy
'Cause you
Nothing.
wouldn't be willing to give that to just Goodwill. You're like, "Oh, I can't do
No,
this anymore," right?
no, that's why I've had it for 20
Mhm.
years, even
Right.
though it's
Yeah,
not really my
yeah.
jam.
And, like, I mean, and then selling something on Marketplace or eBay is like a whole 'nother, a whole
Right.
'nother level of involvement that,
Yeah,
yeah,
and while it was at, like, a Tiffany bowl, it's a pretty common bowl, so,
Mhm.
yeah, it wasn't gonna be worth the effort
Yeah, it
of
wasn't gonna bring in big bucks or anything like that.
no, no,
Mhm.
and, like, the goodwill of giving it to someone in my group was worth more to me
Oh,
than the, 50 or 60 bucks I woulda made
right.
on Facebook or whatever.
Yes, totally.
So,
Yes,
anyway
it is true, and every single time someone comes to pick up something from my house from for Buy Nothing, whether it's like, I don't know, a box of tissues or, like we gave away a whole set of my kids played dress up. It's all these costumes. We just gave away a whole bunch of those. And every time someone picks it up, I just do like a little happy dance
Yeah,
inside and out. It just makes me so happy to like not have things go back into, a consumer cycle, even in through Goodwill or whatnot, and just know that
absolutely.
it's someone comes by because they want it. They're going to use it,
Yes,
um, and
yes.
that is just the greatest thing ever. I love it.
And, like, sometimes you find someone like, there's a drama teacher in our group, and so, like, these kind of weird things that no person would actually need,
Yeah,
she can actually use.
yeah.
It's so
My
fantastic, and
costumer friend, I'm like, "What am I gonna do with this odd, like, sailor hat that I don't" you know what I mean? Like that
yeah,
"Oh, Linda." And
yes,
she, like, she's a costumer, she'll take it. Yeah.
exactly, and by the way, I just wanna say my Buy Nothing group is 4 years old and has grown beyond its original intent. We have hiking groups, we have tennis people who get together for tennis, we get together for, gardening events, we do local trash pickups, we have potlucks, and we are now starting a mahjong group, so
No way,
it
how
y
fun.
yeah, so it truly builds community, and my goal is to I've always wanted to start a time bank, I'm putting it out there now. I've always wanted to start a time bank, undiagnosed ADHD, maybe, but the good thing is that I'm doing good things with it. Who knows? So anyway, time bank is actually what led me to Buy Nothing, and I feel like now the Buy Nothing is 4 years old and has created this amazing community. Now we can start a time bank together rather than me trying to start it from scratch. So I'm excited about that.
That is
And
really, really fun. That's a great concept too. Fantastic.
yes.
Yeah.
So Indy.
Huh? Oh, it was just super fun. It was probably no, not probably. It was absolutely definitely the most exciting race I've ever seen in person. It was a lot of times you go to a race and it's just like the last 10 laps are led by the same person and you know who's going to win. Like 10
Oh, okay.
and sometimes even 20 laps before the end. You're just kind of like that guy's so far ahead, so then you watch
Right.
maybe a race for who's going to be second or third or whatever, that kind of thing. But the
How many
winner's set pretty much. That
and
happens at
how many laps is it?
well, it's 500 miles and it's 2.5. So it's 200 laps. It's 2.5 mile track. So it's huge. It's a humongous track. So you don't see all of it. So you see some wherever it depends on where you're seated. And then they have monitors, right? And they had really great announcers too. Like they have just telling you what's happening on the places of the track where you can't see it, right? And
Oh, okay.
up
Uh-huh.
until the very last lap, it was not we did not know who was gonna win, and my son is a huge fan of Alexander Rossi, and he was leading at one point, it looked like he was gonna win. He wound up 4th, actually. He was 2nd, 3rd, but his teammate anyway, Joseph Newgarden won 2nd year in a row, which is a big accomplishment. Apparent, to have to win 2 consecutive Indy 500s is a big deal. But we didn't know until the very last lap, and we watched all this crazy passing. It was super exciting. The stands and the energy is insane because you talk about
Right.
350,000 people. It's the largest single day sporting event in the world. It is
Oh, interesting.
oh, it's ginormous. It's a huge party too. Like just people are there to party and to watch this race. So there's
So wait,
concerts going on.
largest single day in person or, like, watch
No,
televised?
no, in person. In
How
person.
many people?
350,000.
Wow.
Humongous. It's gigantic. It's insane. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
because like, a football stadium is around 100,000, right? So this is,
Yeah,
like, 3
depending
times
on the
bigger.
stadium. Yeah, it's so huge. It's incredible.
Wow.
And people stay there and camp and it's just like a huge, a cultural thing there. It's been going on since 1919. So it's been going on for,
Wow.
been going on for a long time, and it becomes the whole month of May becomes about in Indianapolis becomes about the Indy 500. And so and people are they're just so friendly and they're excited to talk to you about it, and they're so, "Oh my gosh, it's your first time here," and blah blah blah. And they want to tell you how many times they've gone, and what it's just a lot of fun. And you were just in Indianapolis, so like how
Yes.
friendly people are there. Like they were just really people are just super friendly. Like, the people at the store, the people who wait on you, the people there's just this level of like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" They're just super excited to have you be there. It's really
Mhm.
it's really fun. And so we also got to do a lot of other things, mostly related to racing. It was related,
Shocking.
basically related to racing and eating the food, and they also have this really terrific parade the day before the race, which is apparently the third largest slash most popular parade in the United States, second to the Rose Parade and Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. It's like
Oh, wow.
third most popular, apparently, or well known. It's a really fantastic parade because, first of all, the the one thing about Indiana is like of course, the racing and then the basketball, right? And so
Oh, the
and
Pacers?
yeah, the Pacers, but we actually went to see a Fever game the last night we were there. They did not win. They were playing the LA Sparks, so I feel like I won either way because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, the LA Sparks won." My
Yay.
our hometown. It was my first WNBA game, and it was awesome. It was fantastic because it's really great basketball. I mean, I've been
So
to
the
games, and they're just happening, and of course, they're amazing, and it's just happening so fast, though, that you're like,
mm,
you don't get to see the plays, right? Like the picks that are set, the things you don't get to see like the strategies and all the other kind of things. So the women's basketball is not as fast, but just as intense, but with it's very physical and like there's not as high scoring as the NBA, but it's so exciting. It was so awesome. I'm like, we got to go to more WNBA games here in LA. So I'm excited to see more of those in person too. It was super fun. And of course, the Fever has, I don't know if you keep up on women's basketball, but their new
I
rookie.
don't keep up on any professional
Right.
sports.
Okay. So Caitlin Clark is like the biggest deal that's come out of women's basketball in a very long time. She has scored the most points out of any collegiate basketball player ever, men or women's, in college ever. She scored more points than anyone, even Michael Jordan, even anybody, on the college level. So she's kind of like a big deal, and she's the rookie starter for the Indiana Fever. So
Oh, cool.
it was a really, it was exciting to watch her play, and it just was super fun. And what's really great is like they have like a dance squad instead of like cheerleaders, so it's men and women
Mm,
all dressed
mhm.
in like basically like t-shirts and like kind of like like those pants that they like warm up pants that this
Right, track pants?
track pants, exactly, that's the word. And they do these fantastic hip hop dances and stuff. It's just interesting, having gone to see professional men's basketball, and you've got very
Mm.
scantily clad cheerleaders, and that's cool, and that's a thing,
Mm.
and it's its own thing. But like to see these, men and women all just dressed in like regular street clothes and just rocking it and bring it with these awesome hip hop dances and stuff. It's just, I was like, I never really thought about it. Like, oh yeah, if they had cheerleaders, what would they be? Well, it's a co-ed like hip hop dance team, and it's killer. The parade was super fun because the parade has these I mean, every single it's like the Rose Parade, right? They're all local high schools, so they're not from like all over the country like they are at the Rose Parade. But the
Mm.
marching bands are amazing, and that is a really big thing too. Like the marching bands, I guess in Indiana is a big thing, and so they have these really great marching bands, and they have every single driver come through on, they're standing on their
Oh,
own
cool.
flatbread truck, and you get to see all the drivers come through. And also, the highlight for the parade for me was the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile was there. We got to see it go down the street. I was like, that was super cool. We were
Oh
there
my
for
gosh.
Memorial Day. We got to see like the Indiana sites. We got to bike around the city and go bike up the canals and all around their little cultural trail, and got to see a whole bunch
Oh,
of
did you rent, like, the bikes that they have for
we just
just,
rented
like
yeah, we rented some bikes at a bike rental place. We
oh,
didn't
at a bike, okay.
They have like these Surrey bikes too. I don't know if you saw those as well, where you could do like
Yeah,
4.
like the city bikes.
Oh,
Oh,
we
oh,
just rented they have those too. We rented from a place that rents those Surrey bikes, where you
oh, so,
pedal
like
you've seen, like, what, like, 4 people pedaling at once kinda thing.
gotcha.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but we just rented, like, cruiser bikes and just went around because, Jeremy and his brother did a tandem bike together, which was super cute. His brother has some peripheral vision thing, so he couldn't ride his own bike, so Jeremy rode the
Oh,
front and he rode the back, and so it was really beautiful. We got to see some really nice parts of the city right around the river, the canal, and go to all these different spots throughout the city and got to see the moon tree, which is one of the sycamore trees that I guess when one of the times that the US went to the moon,
oh, okay.
they brought like 500 sycamore seeds with them and brought
Uh-huh.
them there and brought them back and then planted them all over the country. And so one of them is in Indianapolis.
Oh.
And so it's just a regular looking sycamore tree. It had just been to the moon and come back. It got
So it wasn't affected, I guess,
Yeah, I
by
think they
the
were trying to see if
flight.
that would change anything. I don't know.
Interesting.
If there's any difference, I don't think it's been documented or
Right,
observed.
they don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, so we had a really great time. We didn't get to go to the museum that you went to, and I didn't get to go to the amazing spa 2 hours away. It just was not in the cards, but we
Next
had,
time.
a hot tub at our Airbnb. The kids played
Oh,
a
nice.
ton of ping pong in in the garage and foosball, and we just had a really good time. We got to spend some time with some other families that we know and some friends, and it was really a lot of fun. We also got to eat some Indiana delicacies, like the
Mm.
tenderloin sandwich.
Mm. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah,
No?
there was
Yes?
a lot of
No?
fried food on this trip. It wasn't like yeah, so it's
Well,
like
it is the Midwest,
it is
right?
the Midwest, and so I was like, well, because before I went, I was like, well, what foods are famous in Indianapolis? Like, what is
Mm.
their local thing? So they said you have to try a pork tenderloin sandwich. It's basically a pork tenderloin that's been just, pounded into very, very thin, very, very big, breaded, fried, and then the whole thing with it is that it's this big, but the bun is this big, and it's got that's the whole thing with it. Like the sandwich is
Okay.
big and the bun is like this, like
So
it's
just for the audio people, so
right.
the pork tenderloin itself is, like, the size of,
It could be
like, a
like 8
small
inches.
record.
Yeah, like the 8 inches, or some of them are so big that it's folded over in half,
Oh my
and
goodness,
then
and
the
the
bun is
bun
just
is, like
a hamburger size bun.
okay.
But it can be like, I don't even know, this is 8 to 12 inches across, and then you're just regular hamburger bun on top of that. And then I guess the
Okay.
other dessert delicacy, let's say,
So isn't that kind of like, is it schnitzel?
kinda,
Pounded,
yes.
breaded?
Schnitzel would be a veal cutlet, sometimes pork
Oh,
depends.
so it's beef, not pork, okay.
No, this is a pork, yeah, this is a pork
Gotcha.
tenderloin. But yes, it's done differently than that, but yes, essentially, yeah, it's just
Kinda looks like that.
it's gigantic, and it's, the other local, thing is called a sweet cream pie or sugar cream pie, and
Mm.
it's very much like it's basically like it has the density of like a cheesecake essentially, but it's like in a pie crust, and it's
Oh.
made with milk. It has its origins in the Quakers. I read about it a little bit,
Oh,
and the
interesting.
version we got was a creme brulee version. So the top had like this creme brulee crust, and it had like this really dense. It was very, very rich. It was definitely one of those things where, like, you wanna do, like,
Mm.
a half a regular slice and a cup of coffee with it to make it so that you're not just like, "I'm eating cement." You know what I mean? Like, sweet cement, because like, that is it's very good, but it's definitely a small portion pie with a cup of coffee.
Okay, but what I really wanna know is did you go to Amelia's Bakery
We did
for
not
their amazing chocolate croissants?
I I wish we did. Here's the
Oh.
thing, is that this was not my trip.
Yes,
So
yes,
there were some
totally,
things.
totally understand. I
This
was
was
just
not my trip, so and we did have 11 people, to coordinate, so it was like
right.
it was not a thing where, I was just kind of like, "I'm not gonna." I had some
Right, you're not in charge.
suggestions, and we got to do some of my suggestions, which was the biking around and
Mhm.
that kinda thing, but I was just like, "This is not my trip. This trip is not about me." So
Absolutely.
like, it was kind of like plus, we also just We also just bought a lot of food too when we got there, so we ate a lot of, a lot of
Right.
meals at home too, and they had this smoker in the back and at the Airbnb, so our friend, like, smoked all this barbecue chicken.
No, you smoked that's amazing.
Yes, he's like, "Oh, I do this all the time, I love it." I was like, "All right, cool, you do it then." And I've never done it, so I was like I was not thinking we were gonna use it at all, but he's like, "Oh, yeah, I use it in my smoker all the time." And I was like, "Great." So, my husband's friend, Mike, made all this barbecue chicken. It was delicious.
Okay, so before we get on to our topic, what one tip would you give to someone who wants to go to the Indy 500?
Ooh. Okay, so you get to bring in a cooler. And
Oh,
you can bring anything in. You can even bring an alcoholic beverage as long as it's not in a glass bottle. And I would say absolutely 100%. Now there's a lot of really cool food stalls outside of the gates, but inside the refreshment stands, it's kind of limited. They do have a pork
mm.
tenderloin sandwich though, of course, an option.
Plus,
It's
you don't wanna stand in line if you don't have to,
You don't
right?
wanna stand in line if you don't have to the day of, right? And you
Yeah.
can bring, like, we just packed it full of beverages. We bought 2 small, soft-sided coolers, and I would absolutely 100% recommend that. And of course, we had ponchos because it did rain. There was a delay, um, because there was a tornado and thunderstorm uh,
Woah.
watch. So we all got in the stands, and then we all had to leave the stands and just hung out in the car for about 2 hours. And
Oh,
then,
wow.
yeah, there was no point in leaving,
Yeah, yeah.
because they said it was going to pass through, and then they bring out these huge dryers that dry the track and stuff. Anyway, main tip is, take a look at the website, get a soft-sided cooler or whatever, or any kind of cooler. They actually can bring hard-sided coolers too, and pack in some stuff because you may not want to leave your seats too. Because when you do leave your seats to like go get some food, there are incredibly long lines with that many people.
Yeah.
It's incredibly long. And then, we got to go to the Midway and get a bunch of free stuff, which was fun too. Um, but that would be my main tip would be bring a budget, bring your food. Bring food,
Yeah, that's smart, that's
bring
smart.
drinks, yeah.
Yeah, I hate lines.
I couldn't believe
So
that they allowed you to bring in alcoholic beverages too, so some people
yeah, that's
beer
awesome.
drinkers and, like, yeah, we got to bring all that stuff.
I mean, doesn't yeah, I'm not a drinker, but that sounds much better than waiting in line. So, I'm all
Absolutely.
about not waiting in line.
Mhm. So,
Okay.
let's chat.
Yeah, so planning a family meeting. So Natasha and I, if you've listened to us before, we are big fans of planning your week before it starts. And so we like to do a little bit of planning on Sunday. And if you haven't gone here, actually, let me just put it up in the captions. It's tinyurl.com/, uh, plan your week prompts. I had to remember that on the fly. Plan your week prompts. So if you go there, we actually have an audio and a video prompts. It's a 15-minute thing that you listen to. You can listen to it at 1.5 times speed once you get used to it, because we're just going to prompt you on the same thing over and over in terms of planning your week. So we created this because this way you can do it whatever day, whatever time works for you to plan your week. But we like to do it on Sundays, and once we've planned the week, I will then gather my family together with our so this is usually around like 7 o'clock on Sunday night. We bring out our planners. And the first thing that we do is we just go through the week with anything that affects all of us. So, if my child has a recital or a dance, if for some reason I have like this month, I had Tuesday night stand-up comedy classes. So my daughter needed to be aware that she was gonna be in charge of dinner. My husband needed to be aware that he needed to be home at a certain time. That just really helps to smooth out the week when everyone has a mental plan of what's happening before it even starts.
Right. 100%. To literally get on the same page, and that is really, um and my kids are getting old, and your daughter has been part of this planning process. My boys have resisted anything to do with calendars, calendaring, that kind of thing. And so we have yet to really find the right sweet spot for them to be um, involved in that process because they just
Mhm.
really resist it. But then my younger one also likes to know. way ahead of time when things are going to happen, but then you have to
Mm,
like remind him again. So we haven't found that yet. He's 11, he's going into middle school, so we're going to have to find a way that works for them. That hasn't really quite, we haven't quite settled on a way to make that work so that I'm not constantly, on top of what they have to do as far as like, set it and forget it. We've tried to do that with my sons with
right.
their guitar lesson, his guitar lesson. That one we know for sure is going to always happen at the same time. So he's an alarm on his watch. So except that I turned everything off. Uh, so he has an alarm on his watch to help remind him and that kind of thing. But they're super resistant. So the way that we work it, we don't necessarily do a family meeting every Sunday. That's aspirational for us. My husband and I do a financial meeting. We do that in the middle of the week. Just we do it on his payday, so that just keeps it steady for us. Although we just talked about this morning because we had been doing that at night when he got home from work, this whole idea of deep and shallow work, we were finding
Mm,
this is deep work and we're both kind of wasted by then. So we are
mhm.
pivoting our money love date, which used to be on Wednesday nights, to like Sunday mornings, because either before church, after church, we're going to determine when that's going to be the best, but we just decided let's just do it Sunday, because and during the day when we're not just like wasted, because what was happening a lot with our money love
That
dates,
makes sense.
we were just kind
Mhm.
of like dreading it, and because it stopped being like, "Oh, let's do this. This is really helpful." It's gotten to the point where it's like, "Oh, do we have to do this?" And then we'd get around to doing it, and we'd be at kind of a short fuse.
Painful.
Yeah. And then I would find ways to like, I'm like, "Let's just do it tomorrow." You know what I mean? That kind of stuff too. So
Yeah,
it stopped working for us that time. So
yeah.
play around with when's a good time for you to have a family meeting. And so he and I we've just pivoted to the Sunday. I'll let you know next week how that works out. The other thing that we use in lieu of a family meeting is our partner page, which is basically that is something that I do set up on Sunday. I hand it to my husband. I only put on the things that are relevant to him. He doesn't need to know about my work schedule. My work schedule is all over the place. That's not important. He's not home for that, right? But he does need to know the days where he has to pick up the kids, or I'm coming to drop them off at his workplace, or he needs to pick up a grocery order or something like that. All of that, or like, hey, we have a birthday party Saturday night or whatever. Um, because although we do have a shared Google Calendar, it's not really his preferred way of he likes hard copy stuff, and he takes that partner page and slips it into his planner, his weekly planner. So that helps keep us literally on the same page. So if having a weekly meeting doesn't
Mhm.
seem like that's something that your family would be, I wouldn't say capable of doing. Chris, are capable, but maybe it's just not feasible for your family right now. There are
Right.
other ways to circumvent the meeting thing, right?
Absolutely.
'Cause if I say to my kids, "Hey, let's sit down and plan our week," I mean, there's so much resistance to it. They're like, or they just, I mean, it just feels they just don't. It's at this stage where they're not doing it. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So we get
Well,
some.
and I would say my child is about to be 14, and she has had some version of a planner for, I would say, about 5 years now,
She's
and
a mother's child.
no, 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 but she has not been an active user of it very much. I just kind of wanted to introduce the idea. I mean, you have to think about it, in my opinion, you have to think about it like walking or speaking. You're introduced to it for a long time before you start doing it,
Yeah,
and it's actually really interesting this week. I was going to my comedy class, my daughter was gonna be in charge of dinner, and kind of her go-to is tacos, but we had had tacos the night before, and I had set up to have what I call deconstructed kebab, and I said, "Okay, well, are you prepared to make dinner tonight?" She's like, "Deconstructed kebab." I hadn't even said it. I said, "Oh, so you noticed that I was defrosting the turkey?" She said, "Yep, and I saw the cucumbers and the yogurt." So she had kinda put 1 and 2 and 2 to 1 and 1 together to whatever. She had put the things together. And and I said, "Do you feel like you can do it?" And she said, "Yeah," and she'd never done it completely. But she had for years seen me doing it, and then
yeah,
she had started doing parts of it, and then she put it all together. So the next day, I asked my husband, like, "How was dinner?" I was like, he said, "Great." I was like, and she made the kebab, the tahdig, which is a type of Persian rice, and the tzatziki, which is a Greek yogurt, and
yeah,
he's like, "Yep, she made all 3." And I was like,
awesome, right?
and 'cause
Great.
she had never done it in front of me, all 3,
Mhm.
and so I pointed out to her the next day because right now we're factoring polynomials. I don't know if
Sorry,
that sounded like English to all of you, but, it's a math thing. I homeschool my kid, and she's been struggling with it, and I said to her, "Look, the other day, you mastered cooking this whole meal that you've never done before, but you'd seen me do it, you'd done parts of it, and then when you had to do it, it clicked." That's the same thing with factoring polynomials. This is the
Mhm.
first time you're seeing it. You're not gonna get it right away. It's gonna take a while. And so I'm doing the same strategy with planning, like just introducing her to the concept. Same thing with my husband. My husband has had a planner for a long time. He uses it a little bit more and a little bit more every year. Neither of them are where I am with it. It's a long-term thing. It's a long-term skill.
For sure.
So,
Yep, I've
so we
definitely
just keep introducing.
yes, the boys have planners,
Mhm.
haven't really used it, but we do a lot of is check sheets or, that kind of thing. The,
Like
track
a partner page, but for kids.
yeah, it's just the trackers on, like we have a tracker for their chores, tracker for
Mhm.
like practice tracker, for when they for and their lessons and all that kind of stuff. And in the summer, we have a tracker for the summer too. So like there's certain
Mhm.
things that I want them to do daily because things can just go off the rails summer wise. And I want them to have,
Right.
I want them to have a fun and relaxing summer. But there's
Yeah.
also some things that still need to happen, especially when we're traveling. We're going to my folks' house, and I still want there to make sure that that reading happens. And like it's not anything. You've introduced those amazing little between grade books, and
Yeah.
my
The
younger son
summer bridge.
the summer bridge books. Yeah, like my younger son loves them. My older one has aged out of it, but um, he loves it because there's
Yeah.
stickers. It's fun, right? So
Yeah.
so that's one of the ways that we keep things on track.
Those and for people listening, those are by Brain Quest. Brain Quest has these great summer bridge books
Hmm.
all the way up through middle school that I highly recommend.
Yeah, and so he loves it. It's great, and I'm just 20 minutes of reading, which is really easy for them to do their readers anyway. But it's just one of those things, and then I usually try to have like little jobs that they can do helping grandma and
Mhm.
grandpa out since we're there. So
Yeah.
that's how we kind of manage those types of things. But as far as like the family planning stuff goes, it's really mostly just me and my husband. And we get to find more and creative ways to get them planning.
Yeah. Well,
Especially
unless you think I'm, unusual in my valuing planning at this age. I asked my daughter's starting high school, regular high school. She's been homeschooled her whole life. She's starting regular high school in the fall.
Mhm.
And I asked the counselor, "Do you have any tips for my child who's transitioning from homeschooling to regular school?" And her number one tip was get her using a calendar so she can keep track of her assignments,
Mhm.
when things are due, and her homework and stuff. And so, this is not just me who loves planning,
Right.
saying that this is a valuable thing to happen. So, I'm glad I've been introducing it to her. And I said to her, I said, "Hey, Miss Hope said that one of the number one things that you need to become good at is taking care of planning your assignments out so you keep track of those things because, obviously I'm not going to be in the know in the same way that I
Right.
was before."
Right.
So, I will add one little other tip before we leave, which is that at the end of my family doing our planning session, we do have a tiny whiteboard. It's just 1 week and sits in our kitchen. And anything that affects all of us does go on the whiteboard so that my husband and daughter, who don't check their planner as regularly as I do, they know, "Oh, okay, mom is at comedy class tonight. Daughter's doing dinner," that sort of thing. And, you've kind of found that with your partner page that,
Mhm.
you do some planning, but you still need to do a partner page. So you're gonna have to n experiment with these different methods to see what works for you and your family. There's no one way to do anything. These are just suggestions for you to try out.
Absolutely. It really does help. We do the monthly thing, but I've talked about this before. I think we're going to switch to it weekly because I think it gets lost when you have 30 little squares.
Yeah,
My kids don't check that regularly. So I think a larger, thing that just has the week points on it,
yeah.
I think is just more manageable. It's easier for them to like kind of take in.
Yeah, and especially because a month one, things change so much, and then it can get
Yes.
Things get accidentally wiped away, and it's just harder to manage.
Mhm.
I think the 1 week is perfect, and hey, ask your buy nothing group. That's how I
Yes.
got mine.
I know that's how you got yours. Exactly.
Someone's probably got one they're not using, so it's all full circle, full
Full
circle.
circle.
Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week. Our live chat topic. Oh, let me look it up. We will see you next week. And as always, if you want to hear the audio only version of this, check out the Harness the Power of Planning podcast wherever you get yours. And next week, our top plan topic is to talk about saving time and energy by planning your wardrobe, which is a topic that we have put off for many months, but it keeps
Yes.
popping back up. It is a topic that I enjoy, so we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Take care. We'll see you next Thursday.
Dream wild, wild dreamers. Thanks for joining us for the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen.